morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us here today. I have included in the packages some handouts of PowerPoint presentations on CentrePort. And I've done that because a lot of what we're talking about at CentrePort is visual. And it's one thing to describe things verbally, but sometimes you need to be able to see in terms of geographic location and positioning. So if you want to generally follow along with the handouts, you're welcome to, or you could just simply use them as takeaways. So in terms of our assistance and approach to the company CanTrade or to other clients that we're working with at CentrePort Canada, the three types of things that we introduce them to are the strong business fundamentals in Canada and in Winnipeg, and I'm going to give you a snapshot of those, about how you access the markets to which you either import from or export to, so how you manage your supply chain in terms of your company business. And then the third is around what we can do for you at CentrePort Canada, specifically in terms of land availability, one-stop shop for business, and then the foreign trade zone programs, which we work with the federal government to provide single window access to. So just on the first point, and the strong business fundamentals in Canada, I want to just give you a few things for your takeaway, because as typical Canadians, we seldom think of ourselves as best in, or best in class, best in the G7, best in North America. But in fact, a lot of the framework and the financial framework within which we're doing business has changed very significantly over the last number of years. And in fact, with this week's budget speech, confirmed the further reductions in corporate income tax cuts that are going to happen next year that actually create a 33% corporate income tax advantage to being located in Canada over the United States. And I'll tell you that that significant difference is making a lot of American companies sit up and take notice, and we're hearing not only ourselves at CentrePort, but yes, Winnipeg in particular, from a lot of them about what does that mean then for their expansionary plans within North America. We are ranked as the best place in the G7 to do business, and that's all factors in, including speed at which you create a business, overall business costs, and the overall business and financial environment. Another thing we're doing in Canada, which is unique within the North American marketplace, is the federal government has announced it is eliminating tariffs on the import of manufacturing inputs. And I flag this because our company CanTrade imports components of its manufactured product, its final product. And obviously eliminating tariffs on those inputs have a very beneficial impact not only on your bottom line in terms of costs and your ability to cost manage those, but also on your final price that you're able to sell your product to, making it that much more competitive. The federal government has outlined a process. It's very product specific. And so you need to really get engaged into where the tariffs are being eliminated and how this tariff elimination can help. And we hope that this is the start of a growing trend in Canada to eliminate those tariffs, because most successful manufacturing companies right now in Canada source some of their inputs globally, and they certainly are exporting at least within North America, if not globally. And then, of course, we have one of the most open economies in the world. 60% of our GDP in our country is tied to trade. And we are, as a country, currently engaged in free trade agreements with the European Union, as well as launching free trade agreements with India. And the European Union, depending upon the market that this company is exporting to, a free trade agreement would certainly have significant benefits on an overall exported equipment in terms of being able to move tariff-free into that marketplace. Just a snapshot on Winnipeg within the context of Canada. I want to flag that KPMG, their 2010 Competitive Alternatives Study, looked at a number of major cities within North America and all business costs in. And what it found is that Winnipeg is the least expensive city to do business in of 22 Midwestern cities studied. with significant cost index advantages over a number of American cities, including Chicago, Minneapolis, Denver, Phoenix, but also looking across Western Canada. So it's a cost index advantage over Regina, Saskatoon, Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver, and I think that's really significant for a company when you're looking at all costs in. We also, and you're going to see how we stack up in a later slide on manufacturing and distribution centers, but we have the lowest published hydroelectric rates for large industrial users of any major city in North America. And again, depending upon your electricity usage in your product, this can be another significant advantage. Just in terms of access to North American, European, and Asian and South American markets, these were the markets that in the profile were identified as being important to this company Can Trade. Asian markets in particular for being able to source inputs, and European, South American, and North American markets for export of the final manufactured product. And of course, here in the center of Canada, the center of North America, we have excellent rail access to all of the major ports within the reach of those marketplaces. So on the Pacific coast, we are connected by the ports of Prince Rupert and Vancouver through CN and CP Rail into CentrePort, Canada. We are connected to the ports of Thunder Bay and Montreal and Halifax through CN and CP Rail. We're also connected to the ports of Houston with BNSF, New Orleans, BNSF, and Savannah, all of which access South American marketplaces. So there is an opportunity to locate your company here in the very center of North America and to be able to access both your import ports as well as your exports in a seamless way and more rapidly meet those marketplace needs. We also have, and it's an underutilized asset, but it's certainly something there's a growing interest in focusing on, and that's the Port of Churchill. Now the Port of Churchill, as you probably are aware, is primarily a bulk commodity export port, and its markets are primarily Europe and the Middle East right now, and North Africa. Well, there is a growing drive to diversify the operations of that port, and that of course requires some infrastructure investments. Upgrades on the rail line are underway now, but there is an opportunity, for example, to be able to export potentially heavy equipment machinery into the European marketplace much quicker using the Port of Churchill in the future than using the Halifax or Montreal ports to reach those marketplaces. So I just flag that for this company into the future, we have another asset in our tool belt, so to speak, that we're working on as a community to develop further. Now what we do at CentrePort is we act as a facilitator. We help business connect the dots to government, including land development approvals and the zoning, the permitting, and other approvals for new developments. We also help to connect the dots to government in terms of incentives, in terms of expansion activity with tax increment financing and other job creation incentives that can be available. And we also connect the dot to transportation assets. And this is pretty critical as we go forward, because what we see as a company's opportunities at CentrePort are the land, our access on site to tri-modal transportation assets, and then the foreign trade zone programs. And we can, as a one-stop shop for that business, facilitate access to all of those elements. So CentrePort, we're about 18 months into the development. We offer 20,000 acres connected in the northwest quadrant of the city to an on-site, very busy cargo airport, access to the 3 Class 1 rail carriers that service Canada, CN, CP, and in Winnipeg, Burlington, Northern Santa Fe. And of course, under construction right now is the $212.5 million expressway called CentrePort Canada Way, which will rapidly connect commercial truck traffic into the northwest quadrant of the city and allow for rapid ins and outs for that type of business. We have industrial space under development currently, and we have 2 industrial parks which are currently selling land in large acreages, which is not a scenario you find in other parts of the urban center, not only in Winnipeg, But in fact, real estate brokers tell us it's a difficult access to that size of acreage adjacent to an urban center anywhere in Canada. So we're offering another unique product. Land costs, our service land costs are significantly less than you'd find service land costs for in competitive cities across Western Canada. And that's an advantage, as is our lower labor costs, lower hydro costs, electricity costs, and as I mentioned earlier, our lower operational costs. Just picking up a little bit on our tri-modal logistics. In partnership with the province of Manitoba, CentrePort Canada has acquired about 1,000 acres of the land within the CentrePort area. We've announced in our business plan this year intentions to develop a common use rail facility. And that facility will allow a company like CanTrade to be able to access 3 Class 1 rail carriers from a single location. And if there's one thing that we have not benefited from in Western Canada, and that in recent years is low rail rates. And what we see as an opportunity for companies, both importing and exporting, is the sharpening of the pencils by rail companies as they seek to access the growing business at CentrePort. So enhanced competition is going to lead to lower overall transportation costs in the future. Now, our central location, as I mentioned earlier, we're at the hub of a number of key markets, and part of our single window access is working with a number of government departments, including the federal government in terms of the Department of Foreign Affairs and Export Development Canada, who's going to speak to you next, in terms of being able to access new markets and in-market access for companies. Now, just a little more focus on our foreign trade zone. And in Canada, federal foreign trade zone programs are available regardless of your location. So I'm not going to mislead anyone in this room. What we determined when we were creating CentrePort was that A, no companies in Canada were using them, because B, no companies in Canada even knew they existed, or C, if they knew they existed, our federal friends had made it as difficult as possible to apply for and have approval of those programs. I apologize, to all our federal friends in the room, but I think many who've been close to this in the past would agree with that, and certainly that was the analysis that had come out of Foreign Affairs and Transport Canada when we were working with them 2 years ago on this. So what was created was a single window access to the federal foreign trade zone programs for CentrePort only. And we are supported at CentrePort with a task force of federal officials that help to assess a company's situation, assess which programs best meet the company's business plan and needs, and then be able to provide rapid access to those programs based upon suitability and approval of application. And in the case of this company, we've identified several programs that we think would suit the company's needs in terms of being able to release some of the cash they have held in inventory in terms of paying upfront duties and tariffs. And what we would suggest is that they either look at a duty relief program or duty drawback program, which allows the companies to save import duty payments on the inputs that are coming into their product. And there's a variety of ways that that can happen. One is you can defer it up front until there's a domestic point of sale, or you can draw it back if you've paid it up front and get a refund. What that means is that you defer then the payment until you've actually had that point of sale, or if you're re-exporting that product out of the country, then the Canadian duties and tariffs never apply to the bottom line price, allowing your exported product to move out and be priced more competitively without those Canadian duties being part of the bottom line. The second foreign trade zone program that we would suggest the company look at is the customs bonded warehouse program. And this creates a defined geographic space within a warehouse or an entire warehouse that would basically allow the parts or products to come into that warehouse in bond, which means they essentially stay foreign until they're actually incorporated within the full product and are sold domestically or they're re-exported. And within the customs bonded warehouse, the product can actually continue to stay in bond and have some basic processing take place. Now, and this is an area where CentrePort Canada and a number of other transportation authorities have been working together across the country to lobby the federal government to, in fact, enhance the competitiveness of its foreign trade zone programming in the country to make it, if not as competitive as that in the United States, ideally even more competitive. And the federal government in its budget this week confirmed its intention to review the federal foreign trade zone programs. So on a go-forward basis, hopefully we're going to have more to announce. Now, what do those two programs mean in terms of tangible savings to the bottom line of the company? There's a chart in here which shows some of the products that this company would import, from fiber steel strapping to brake linings to casters to hinges. And if all of those were imported combined, the company, and you used a duty drawback or a customs bonded warehouse product, you would actually save as much as $30,000 in terms of being able to defer those tariffs and duties paid until domestic sale, or you would not ever pay them if the product was being re-exported. So that's essentially what we offer at CentrePort Canada in terms of support to a company like CanTrade that is very much managing its supply chain globally and has outgrown its current geographic location.